Hello and welcome to Marshall Armory. I'm your host, Alexander Bolton. Today we're going to talk about a blog that I posted up on our website. We actually have multiple websites. We have Prevention Master, and then our head company, which is Marshall Armory LLC. Now everything, it's just a small group of us. We're all combat veterans. It's a small veteran-owned company based here in West Virginia, and we have everything to do with outdoors, military, law enforcement, tactical, survival. It's kind of what we do, what are our backgrounds and everything. So, one thing that I wanted to present today was a blog that we posted a while back on preventionmaster.com of the 5-step process for parents to protect their children. Now, one thing I wanted to discuss with this is, well, let's just dive right into it, okay? So for your tip one is you should be good at identifying risks. You should be able to understand, acknowledge, and learn what the typical risks are in your child's life. Okay, once you've kind of looked around and seen what exactly your children are exposed to every day, whether they're small children, toddlers, teenagers, or even adults, for the older generation, you should really look at what exactly your children are into and what's around them, and then you should make a list of these potential risks or threats. Just write them down on paper. That way, you have an idea of what's going on. And then you should base your list on what your child is exposed to each day as they go about their normal routine. You'll be able to tell what could be classified as a risk or what's just a nuisance, or it has no negative effects on their life at all, or even positive. It's just there. All right, so tip 2 is to make a plan. Look at each risk you wrote down and start with the first one. Think of ways you can either eliminate a risk or minimize it. A good example of this is if your child is old enough to walk home from school. Each day they walk home by themselves, putting themselves in a risky situation to be kidnapped or be a victim of a violent crime. Make a plan of the possible solutions to this problem. Now, a lot of people might not say that that's a problem. I personally myself grew up in the hills of West Virginia, and I walked home by myself into the school bus every day. We lived down the boonies, so I had a little bit of a walk to go to get to the bus stop. In the area that I grew up in, we didn't have sex offenders around us. We didn't have anything to really worry about. But nowadays, like if you live in New York City, or, like I was stationed down in Texas for several years, down in El Paso, there at Fort Bliss, that's a huge city. I myself had run-ins with the cartel just going to the bar at night. That was back when I was younger, when I still drank. Don't drink. I don't drink anymore. I'm not an advocate for that. Do not drink. But one thing about it is, when I was going out and about, you'd come in contact with a lot of shady characters. And one thing that I want to get across to people is I'm not saying don't let your children walk home from school or from the school bus, or that there's anything wrong with that. But if you live in a bad neighborhood, you might want to look at the example of, whose house do they walk by? Do they walk by a known drug house, Or is it a house that's owned by the cartel? Or is there an outlaw motorcycle gang that operates out of that, that you wouldn't want your daughter, let's say your daughter or your son exposed to that? Then you got to come up with a plan and think of ways that you could remedy that situation. All right, moving on. Tip 3 is to implement the plan. So after you've sat down and you've come up with everything, like, hey, this is my list of what the potential threats, and you've analyzed the entire situation, then you should turn around and look at, make that plan. How can I fix the problem? How can I protect my child? How can I eliminate this threat out of their life? Then you have to turn your plan into action. All right, talk to your significant other. All right, talk to your children. Get them on board with it, and keep to a schedule. This means everyone, including you. So when I mean talk to your significant other, let them know what the plan is. Discuss the plan, make sure that they're on board with it, and then discuss it with your children. Let them know what your fears are, what you've been thinking. Put it into perspective, like, this is why I have a fear that something might happen to you. Most of the time, in my experience, like with my own kids, when you put something into perspective for people, or even when teaching, if you can get them to logically understand why you're doing something or why it's bad or why it's a threat, most of the time the average person will be like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. Let's go with it. So, just get them on board with it as far as getting them to understand why you're doing it and what they feel about it. All right, and tip 4 kind of goes along with that of getting your children on board with it, is you teach your children. Now that you have a plan and you have implemented that plan, now is the time to teach everyone in the house. Make sure your children understand the new rules and can explain the plan back to you, also known as a back brief. All right, make sure that your significant other understands and can back brief the plan. So everybody in your household, whether it's you, your wife, your husband, everybody in the household, all the way down to the children, everyone should know what the plan is, stick to the plan, whether it's a change in routine, a change in scheduling. Everyone should know what that plan is, and they should be able to tell you what the plan is. So like when you're discussing it with your family, they should be able to come back to you and be like, okay, this is what the plan is. This is how we're going to implement it. This is what's happening each day. In the military or law enforcement terms, we've always used that as called, it's a back brief. You should be able to sit in on the briefing, understand the mission statement, and then you should be able to do a back brief and brief it back to the team leader. That way everyone understands and everybody is on the same page. All right, tip 5 is you should analyze the results. So after you implement your plan, okay, you acknowledge and analyze what the threats are. Then you make a plan. You initiate that plan. You make sure everybody's on board with it and knows what the plan is. And then you're going to analyze the results. So you're going to go back analyze the results after about 30 days and see if what you have put into motion will work. Okay, look at how effective it is. Determine if it should continue or start over again by conducting a reevaluation. So sometimes your plans might not work. I've been there. I've put together raids for search warrants and law enforcement and stuff that, you think it's a beautiful plan. It's been briefed. I had my guys back brief it to me. But then when you actually implement it, it goes to hell. I mean, that's just everything that could go wrong goes wrong. That's just going to happen. That's a fact of life. Some people experience this, some people won't. So you just kind of need to go through and figure out what it is that works and what doesn't, and then just try to implement that, and then, reevaluate. After about a month, I give it a month. That'll tell you, after 30 days, it'll tell you whether it's actually working and if it's beneficial or not. All right, so that's it. I mean, the resources for this, I just want to throw it out there. You can check out our website of preventionmaster.com. And we're actually under development for the blog for our parent company of Marshall Armory. Eventually, I'll throw out what the website is there once we actually get the domain. We're still trying to tweak it a little bit with our content there. But Prevention Master, you can check out our blogs, our web store. We're coming out with a web store for Marshall Armory as well. And you can feel free to contact us. You can contact us on Facebook at Prevention Master or Marshall Armory. Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. If you have any questions or you need resources or anything, as far as law enforcement, military, security, feel free to contact us. It's not going to cost you a dime to just contact me and talk to me. I mean, if you want to send me an email, by all means, go ahead and do it. I'll put the email in the link in the description below and everything, and you can shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to help in any way we can. All right, well, I hope you guys learned something from this, and hope you all have a wonderful day.